All right, it is 7 o'clock, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. While this meeting is being held in person, in consideration of COVID-19 health concerns, we are also offering this meeting to the public via Zoom. Instructions on how to participate virtually are included on the city's website on the front page of missionks.org. Would you please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Audrey, would you please call roll?
Boltinghouse.
Here.
Davis.
Here.
Flora.
Here.
Hinman. Pring.
Here.
Rothrock. Schlosmacher.
Here.
And Thomas.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, moving on our agenda, item 1, public hearings. We do not have any public hearings tonight, so we'll move on to item 2, special presentations. Our first presentation is from Aaron Witt of Johnson County Wastewater, who will be providing an update on the planned improvements to their treatment plant in Mission. Mr. Witt, would you please come up to the lectern and tell us about your plans? Or is it Susan?
I think Susan's going to do the introduction.
Okay. 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 Nope.
There we go. Now you can hear me. My name is Susan Picaric, and I'm the general manager for Johnson County Wastewater. And I have some members of my team here this evening I'd like to introduce. I can tell you we're really excited to be here. We're excited to tell you about the renewal of the Nelson Treatment Facility, which has been around for quite a while, and Aaron will talk a little bit about that. But this evening I have Aaron Witt with me. He's our chief engineer. He'll be making the presentation right behind me here. We also have Patrick Denning, who's in the back row, green tie, Patrick's waving. And Patrick Denning is the engineering manager for our existing infrastructure. So his team is overseeing the project, and then we've got Isaac Crabtree, Isaac standing up there, and Isaac will be managing the project for us as well. And we'll have other team members that you'll be introduced to along the way, but you've got the core team here this evening, so we're excited to talk about the project. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Aaron.
Good evening. It's great to be here. Thank you for that. Can I remove my mask? Can you hear me okay? You okay with that? Thank you. Otherwise, I'll fog up my glasses and won't be able to see notes. Okay. All right. So is the slideshow started? Maybe you can go to the second slide, please. And next, yeah, there we go. So this evening, I'd like to walk through an overview of the project, some of the drivers, along with our plans for upcoming public engagement. Next slide, please. The Nelson service area is located in the northeast part of the county. The facility is located near I-35 and Lamar, as you're probably well aware. It serves 2 sewer sheds. Turkey Creek is to the west and generally runs along I-35. And Mission Main is located to the west of that service area. Next slide, please. In 2018, the board authorized planning studies for the Nelson Wastewater Treatment Facility, as well as the collection system that it serves. This figure shows the Nelson service area. We've highlighted 3 pump stations that will be those 3 pump stations pump flow to Nelson for treatment, and we'll need to do upgrades at those 3 facilities as part of the project. The Turkey Creek Pump Station and Rock Creek Pump Station are located in Mission, so we'll be in communication with you and working with you on those facilities. Next slide, please. The Nelson Complex is our oldest facility. It has 2 separate treatment facilities located there. They do share a few common processes like solids processing. Mission Main was our first facility constructed in 1947, with Turkey Creek being constructed in the 1960s. This treatment technology is out of date, similar to what was happening at our Tomahawk treatment facility in Leawood, where we're doing an upgrade. This new facility will meet our future limits, our future permit limits that we worked with the state on, and include limits for ammonia and nutrients. Ammonia is toxic to aquatic life. And then nutrients such as nitrogen and phosphorus that can encourage algae growth, which can impact water quality. So we'll be reducing those as part of this. We'll also be treating wet weather at this facility, which will allow us to come up with more solutions out in our system and solve those wet weather issues. And then also with the new facility, we'll be minimizing nuisance issues such as odors. Next slide, please. The overall schedule is for design services through 2023, with construction being finished in 2029. We're planning to bring on a construction manager at risk, or you'll hear me refer to it as CMAR, later this year to help with design and constructability efforts, as well as being part of the engagement and outreach program that we're developing. As far as construction, that third line item, we'll have some smaller projects that we complete early, and that's to keep the facility running and treating flows while we build the new facility. But the main project is scheduled for 2024 to 2029 for construction. As part of the financing of the project, we were successful in being selected by EPA to apply for a loan through their Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act, or WIFIA program. WIFIA is a federal credit program administered by EPA that provides long-term, low-cost supplemental credit assistance for water and wastewater projects. WIFIA can cover up to 49% of the total project amount, which for Nelson, that would equate to around $230 million. WIFIA loans are tied to the U.S. Treasury securities and have fixed rates over the life of the loan, so we're really excited about this. It was a competitive process where this project was selected by EPA to go forward with that loan application. We'll be finishing that loan application this year and submit it this fall. And then finally, our public outreach efforts will be starting up soon and run through the entirety of the project. And I'll talk to more of those in a minute. Next slide, please. We finalized the process to select a design engineering team for the project. The team is made up of Black & Veatch, HDR, George Butler Associates, and Shockey Consulting. Shockey will be helping us with our outreach efforts. The construction manager at risk is the next piece of the team that we'll bring on this year. We'll receive statement of qualifications at the end of this month and then go through the rest of the competitive process with a request for proposal. And I'd like to thank Celia Duran of your staff that will be participating with us on that selection committee. So that's fantastic. I appreciate that. Next slide, please. As I said, our upcoming project will design and construct a totally new facility. That new facility will meet those future permit limits and treat wet weather flows, very similar to our Tomahawk plant in Leawood that's under construction now, and we'll be treating flows later this year. The project will also include those major upgrades at pump stations and force mains that I spoke about earlier. Next slide, please. We just started the design efforts and are beginning evaluation on our treatment alternatives, which can affect the layout of the facility. The two different figures you see on the slide are actually that's not our current treatment facility. That's just projections of what could be there. And just depending on the alternatives and the processes that we select will help us determine what that layout is. But we're making an effort to move the infrastructure to the northern part of the plant site to lessen the community impacts. As I said, one of our challenges is to continue treating flows while we're constructing the new facility. And having that contractor on board early in our design process will help us with our construction phasing challenges that we have. Next slide, please. Sustainability is an important piece of our early evaluation and design. We'll be evaluating treatment processes to reduce chemical and energy requirements of the plant. We'll be utilizing digesters to treat solids, which allows us an opportunity to beneficially reuse the gas that's captured as part of that process, as well as being able to land apply the biosolids as fertilizer instead of sending those solids to the landfill, which that's the current process that happens at Nelson. So those are things that we'll be evaluating and implementing as part of this project. Next slide, please. Community input and impacts are important issues, and we considered those when in selection of our design team. We know this project will touch multiple parties. As you can see from the slide, we'll have 2 counties, 3 cities, Kansas Department of Transportation, as well as all of our neighbors. Next slide, please. We want to build community and stakeholder trust through early and ongoing engagement. We're developing an engagement plan that includes both providing information as well as receiving input from you as well as the other cities, our businesses, and our residents. We know this is essential for this project to be a success. And we're developing a comprehensive stakeholder list right now, and we want to be able to engage them through the entire life of the process. So we'd invite you, if you have someone that you know would be good to be on that committee and be part of that stakeholder engagement, please let us know. Next slide, please. We'll be holding public and stakeholder meetings where we can communicate project information such as construction impacts and schedule. We want to be able to listen to concerns and solicit input on minimizing disruption during construction. And we anticipate using both in-person meetings as well as we've learned over the past year and a half, virtual meetings can be really effective. And there are opportunities where people want to be engaged and be involved in the meeting, but just don't have time to get there. So we will be utilizing virtual methods also. Next slide, please. We're developing a project website. It's jcwnelson.com. It will be the focal point of our communication and outreach. We've developed a similar site for our Tomahawk project. It's jcwtomahawk.com. If you haven't seen that site, I would encourage you to go there and see what type of information is on there and how that works. But also, when you go to that site, there's a special section called How It Works, which is about our different treatment processes and walks through why they're important and what happens in those processes. If you're not interested, but you know a science teacher, point them to that project site because I think it's great for the classroom. Next slide, please. This is the last one. Yeah, and then finally, just next steps, we'll be continuing through our preliminary design efforts this year, going into our competitive selection of a construction manager at risk and begin our outreach efforts. And with that, really appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight to kick off this project and looking forward to our future meetings and discussions, but happy to answer any questions or hear any input you have.
Any questions for Mr. Witt? Seeing none, thank you very much for coming us and letting us know what you're doing. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, moving on tonight, we do have a proclamation, a Pride Month proclamation that recognizes June as LGBTQ+ Pride Month and commemorates the June 1969 Stonewall riots in New York City, which was a historic turning point in changing discriminatory criminal laws for LGBTQ+ people. Mission is a community that respects and actively seeks to welcome and protect all those who reside, visit, or do business in our community. Mission also welcomes people of all sexual orientations and gender identities and believes that everybody should be able to live without fear of prejudice, discrimination, violence, and hatred based on race, religion, gender identity, or sexual orientation. We urge that all Mission residents to respect and honor our diverse community and celebrate and build a culture of inclusiveness and acceptance. That concludes item 2. Moving on to item 3, issuance of notes and bonds. We do not have any items this evening related to the issuance of notes and bonds. So we'll move on to item 4 in our agenda, consent agenda. Our consent agenda does have 6 items on it this evening. Our council committees thoroughly discussed each of these items on June 2nd. The committees agreed that the items listed on our consent agenda are routine enough to be considered under a single motion. Other items considered by the committees will be presented under committee reports later on in our agenda tonight. If a council member or a member of the public would like any item removed from the consent agenda, they may make that request at this time. Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Mayor, I move that the city council adopt the consent agenda as printed, items 4A through 4G.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Audrey, please call for the vote.
Schlosmacher,
Aye.
Thomas,
Aye.
Boltinghouse,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Rothrock, Inman, Crane,
Aye.
and Flora.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
All right, that concludes item 4. Moving on to item 5, public comments. If any members of the public would like to make a comment on items that are not included on this agenda, now would be the time. If you are participating through Zoom, please either add your comment in the chat feature and it will be read aloud, or note that you would like to speak and we will call on you shortly to make your comments. Please remember your comments and questions are visible to everybody in the meeting. If you are a part of our in-person group tonight, please raise your hand but stay seated and we will call on you to come to the lectern and make your comments. When you make your comment, please state your name and city of residence. Does anyone would like to address council? Yes, Andy, please come forth.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Andy Bound. I live in Overland Park, but I'm here tonight representing Johnson County Community College. Starting in July, I joined the college as the college's new president, probably not so new anymore, at the retirement of Dr. Sopcich. And we thought that perhaps attending council meetings throughout the county would be a good way for me to introduce myself in these unusual times of where it's starting to get better now, or for the most part, people are kind of like, just kind of stay your distance. And so I wanted to come and introduce myself tonight, as well as give you a quick update on your community college. My goal tonight is to do just that, really to introduce myself, but also to provide you with an update on your college. While each year we will serve, depending on the year, 35 to as many as 45,000 students in degree and certificate programs, as well as non-credit continuing education programs. I wanted to talk specifically about the folks from your community, from here in Mission. Each year we will serve some 270 students who are specifically residents of your community. In addition, the better part of 20 students each year are high school students who are concurrently enrolled. In other words, they're high school students taking college courses at their high school. And each year we'll have 35 or so graduates. This past year, because of the pandemic, we chose to deliver our courses primarily by distance in some form of online education, with approximately 20% of our courses being offered face-to-face. As we work our way through the summer term, which started a week ago, we are looking very much like a traditional summer term for us. Often community college students are seeking to take their summer classes online. However, as we approach the fall semester and as we've planned for fall and registration process is well underway, our courses will be more than 50% face-to-face. Again, in a growing demand from students to deliver classes on campus face-to-face. Also acknowledging that there are many students who prefer, because of their life circumstances, their schedules, and or their learning preferences, prefer to take courses online, and we will continue to deliver courses online. I'm pleased to say that as of June 1st, the Nerman Museum of Contemporary Art is open again to the public, as is the Midwest Trust Center. And we have a full lineup of performances planned for the fall and beyond. Summer camps are under full swing for me as I look out on the courtyard each day. It is really good to see students back on campus, students of all ages. And so we have many youth camps from young children through high school students that are taking advantage of the services on campus. All employees that work in the summer on campus are back on campus. So we are what I recently described as normal operations in times that are anything but normal. Tuition continues at $94 a credit hour as compared to other Kansans outside of Johnson County who may take classes at JCCC will be paying $112. So that makes our college still the most reasonably priced higher education experience in the state of Kansas. For those who have thought that college is out of reach, recently the governor signed the College Promise Scholarship, which makes last dollar scholarships available to recent high school graduates and folks 21 and older who have lived in the state of Kansas for at least 3 years to attend college in high demand, often high wage, but not always high wage fields of study leading to really good careers, such as IT and security, physical and mental health care, advanced manufacturing and the building trades, early childhood education and development, and education and training programs. While the program is set, we're expecting that we'll launch early in July. The final details are being worked out with this as it's a statewide program delivered by each of the community and technical colleges, as well as the private colleges that have associate degree workforce programs. While this has been a challenging year, certainly for all of us, I thank you for your leadership. And I also thank you for your support, as well as to the taxpayers of Johnson County. We greatly appreciate your support of your college. And I thank you for your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to address council that on items not on the agenda this evening? Seeing none, we will move on to item 6. These are action items from the Planning Commission. We do not have any items from the Planning Commission this evening, so we'll move on to item 7. Committee reports. Councilmember Crane, will you please provide a report of the Finance and Administration Committee?
Thank you, Mayor. The Finance and Administration Committee met on June 2nd and considered a total of 7 items. The acceptance of the meeting minutes were approved under the consent agenda, along with the Mission Summer Family Picnic special event and the contract for crossing guard services. There are 4 additional items to consider on the regular agenda tonight. 7A is the final certification of costs for Roland Court Townhomes, which is the Rock Creek project. In August 2017, a subsidence of the parking lot and common area of the Roland Court Homes Association occurred that is adjacent to the Rock Creek Channel, which was under consideration for a large improvement project. Staff worked with residents, consultants, and engineers to find a way to manageably fund the repairs. A creation of a community improvement district was determined to be the best solution. The CID, Community Improvement District, would allow for special assessments that would allocate the payment over a 22-year period. In July 2019, Council approved Ordinance 1503, certifying the maximum assessment to be charged to each parcel of $20,040. The city moved forward with the stormwater improvements, and the project is now complete. City staff and council must now certify the final project costs, provide property owners with a formal notice of assessment, allow for a 30-day prepayment period for the assessment, and certify all remaining costs to Johnson County by August 25th, 2021. Overall project costs came in under budget, and the final cost to be assessed to each townhome property will be $19,838.40, which equates to $901.75 annually for 22 years. Once the final steps in the certification process are complete, the assessments will appear on the November 2021 tax bills received by the property owners, and assessments will be remitted to the city 2 times each year from Johnson County. Therefore, Mayor, I move the City Council approve the final costs for the Rock Creek Channel Improvement Project and allocate costs to be certified to Johnson County for each owner in accordance with Ordinance 1503.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, Audrey, please call for the vote.
Davis,
Aye.
Boltinghouse.
Aye.
Rothrock. Inman. Flora.
Aye.
Crane.
Aye.
Thomas.
Aye.
And Schlesmacher.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Next, Mayor, 7B, which is the resolution approving street sales tax ballot language. Mission currently has a 1/4% citywide retailer sales tax, which is dedicated to the maintenance of transportation improvements, but will sunset on March 31st, 2022. Currently, it primarily supports debt service for previous street improvement projects, which was deemed a priority for Mission residents. In order to continue making investments in the street infrastructure network, a renewal of the sales tax is needed. For the last 18 to 24 months, a street asset management plan was built, and through council work sessions, the governing body formed a consensus to move forward with a special mail ballot election in September. Based on the needs identified and a desire to refocus efforts in the residential neighborhoods, coupled with the continued maintenance of major arterials and collectors, it has been determined for the renewal to be at an increased rate of 3/8 cent for a period of 10 years. A resolution was prepared which authorizes the election, sets an election date via mail ballot of September 21st, 2021, establishes the new rate, and provides sample ballot language. There was discussion at the committee meeting about the potential of adding the word renewal into the proposed ballot language. Ms. Smith, can you please update the council on this option?
Yes, thank you. And at each of your places this evening is a red line version of the resolution that has been prepared by Kevin Wempe at Gilmore and Bell. And we just wanted to touch on this very quickly. So you'll see two new whereas clauses that are proposed there, which would just help communicate in this process that this is a sales tax that had been previously approved by our electors at that 1/4 cent level, and then comments on the expiration date of the current sales tax and the governing body's desire to seek renewal of that transportation sales tax at an increased rate of the 3/8%. And then if you flip to the second page of the resolution, you'll see that the wording could be modified slightly in the actual language that would appear on the ballot. Shall the city of Mission, Kansas be authorized to renew the citywide retailer sales tax currently imposed at 1/4% and impose such sales tax at an increased rate of 3/8%. So certainly wanted to get this in front of you this evening because we know we are on a tight turnaround time frame with the Election Commission in terms of being able to report to them our actual ballot language so they can move forward to get those ballots printed for us. And Kevin Wempe is here this evening if we have other questions for either he or I.
Go ahead.
That's Ollie.
Yeah, I just have one quick question. I know I'm the one that mentioned the renewal language or looking at that possibility, but is there a staff recommendation on the original language or using the renewal language or preference?
I
on
think
that?
you could go either way. I think you can put it in the actual ballot language. I think it's probably helpful for those people who receive the mail ballot and haven't seen any of the rest of the information that will be circulated or provided around the campaign. So I think certainly we would support the addition of the language as proposed. I think it's much clearer, certainly, in terms of in that specific ballot language, communicating what the intent and outcome of that election would be.
Thank you, Laura.
Mhm.
After consideration of the changes in the resolution, Mayor, I move the City Council approve the resolution authorizing and calling a special question election for the purpose of submitting the question of imposing a 3/8% citywide retailer sales tax for the purpose of financing the cost of transportation improvements and related costs.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions on this topic? Seeing none, Audrey, please call for the vote.
Schlosmacher,
Aye.
Boltinghouse,
Aye.
Rothrock, Thomas,
Aye.
Kring,
Aye.
Inman, Davis,
Aye.
and Flora.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
And if we could just confirm for the record, that is the revised resolution that was presented this evening. Yes?
Yes.
Next, we have 7C, which is resolutions of intent to finance various improvements identified through the Facility Conservation Improvement Program. Staff has been working with the CTS Group and the state of Kansas to review and evaluate Mission's various facilities to determine projects to be submitted and are included in the Facility Conservation Improvement Program. The final project priorities are still under consideration, and in order to preserve the ability to reimburse ourselves for any costs incurred prior to bond issuance, the council must pass a resolution of intent. The resolution helps to ensure the bonds can maintain their tax-exempt status and signals publicly the council's intentions with respect to potential debt issuance. Two resolutions have been prepared as the streetlight portion of the FCIP project is treated as different class and type of infrastructure and requires separate consideration. Therefore, Mayor, I move the City Council approve the resolution establishing the city's intent to finance all or a portion of the projects identified by the Facility Conservation Improvement Program to provide for reimbursement of related costs prior to bond issuance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Questions or discussion on this topic? Seeing none, Audrey, please call for the vote.
Thomas,
Aye.
Kring,
Aye.
Schlosmacher,
Aye.
Flora,
Aye.
Boltinghouse,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Rothrock, Inman. Motion carried. Thank you.
And last, 7D, which is the COVID-19 protocols. At the May committee meeting, staff presented a series of recommended revisions and updates to Mission's protocols as it related to the operation of city departments, programs, and services following the expiration of the county's public health orders. Shortly after the committee meeting discussion, the CDC released new guidance outlining safe activities for vaccinated individuals. Staff was asked to review and revisit the recommendations considering this updated guidance. During the June 2nd committee meeting, staff did not recommend any changes, primarily because we were still within roughly a 2-week window following the updated CDC guidance, and we were continuing to monitor vaccination incidence and percent positivity rates within the county as restrictions were being lifted. Since the committee meeting, we have continued to monitor the same statistics and trends, and all have experienced decreases over the last 2 weeks. While no changes were recommended in the packet distributed Friday, the leadership team has had an opportunity this week to evaluate and discuss the situation, which would recommend changes for council consideration this evening. Ms. Smith, would you please update the council on the staff recommendations?
Yes, and thank you. Again, at your place is a memo that just provides an update with some of that information. As Councilmember Kring referenced, both in May when we talked about it and in June, we were still really within generally the parameters of that 14-day or 2-week window following sort of in May, following the expiration of the county's public health orders, and then at the first part of June, following the guidance for fully vaccinated individuals that was provided by the CDC. We did want to kind of keep an eye as we saw restrictions being lifted essentially almost everywhere that you went at what was happening with positivity rates and incident rates, as well as vaccination rates in the county. And included in this memo, the current information as of today, fully vaccinated individuals within Johnson County is about 46.4%. That's lower, I think, than what folks had anticipated and hoped, and I know they're continuing to offer vaccination clinics and opportunities to try to increase that number. But when we look at that positivity rate, we're at about 1.5%. That's actually held steady. We haven't seen much of a decrease, but that's held steady for the last couple of weeks. Back in the first part of May when we presented that, we were sitting at a positivity rate of about 3.4%. So we've seen that positivity rate come down over the last 6 weeks. And again, the incidence rate has also come down. It's currently sitting at 27, and back on even on June 2nd, it was sitting at 47. So I think the numbers are absolutely trending in the right direction. And so we took the opportunity, as we've had the full leadership team back together, to sit down and say, are there recommendations that we would make, or any additional suggestions that we would make? And there are a couple. So what I did is I took those recommendations that were included in the June action item and June memorandum, and have presented you with a redlined version of what we would recommend that we would change going forward. And that would include, so from a public standpoint, we would not require the public to be masked while attending our public meetings or council meetings. Certainly that would still be encouraged. And then just adding the language, masking for unvaccinated public will be encouraged in all indoor spaces, but not required in the following situations. So again, what we had done is we had transitioned to a request or recommendation that, particularly here in the community center, because of the summer camp program that just started this past Monday, and because of that influx of those 100+ children that were going to be in the building for the next several weeks, that we would ask patrons and our staff to stay masked in the common areas. But once you were in a rental space, or in a class or program, or on your piece of exercise equipment, cardio equipment, the mask could be removed. And we are still asking for that recommendation. I think just the sound of coming in the building, I had another meeting over here this morning, and coming in and hearing that those sounds of life with the kids back in the building was great. But it feels right to continue to protect that population, in particular, who doesn't have the option or opportunity to be vaccinated at this point. Masking for city employees will be encouraged in all indoor spaces and required in the following situations. And so again, the change here is that we're recommending that we look at a shift for all interactions with the public when in an indoor space, which would include the courtrooms and police calls where they were going into a residence or a building. But for interactions occurring outdoors, so on an initial police stop, that our employees would not be required to be masked. They would need their mask available should the resident or individual they were dealing with ask them to put that on. And though that represents the changes in terms of protocols, one of the other things that we had talked about was a capacity limitation on the outdoor pool, just trying to encourage people to stay spread out. We did experience, and we'd set that capacity limit at 200, and that was based on prior years or pre-COVID attendance, including camp kids. We did exceed that 200 number this past weekend. And so we think it makes sense for us to look at increasing that capacity to 300. We'll continue to monitor that. We only exceeded it by about 30 folks, so it's not like we went to 500. We were at 238 or something along those lines. So we'll continue to watch that and monitor that and make that that amenity available. I think certainly with the temperatures where they've been, and some of the other challenges that some of our neighboring cities' pools are encountering with leaks and staffing still, that our pool has been a very popular spot, which is, again, a great thing. So we would recommend increasing the capacity to 300 with the ability that staff could continue to evaluate that, and if we needed to increase that we would have some flexibility to do so. To be happy to answer any questions.
Debbie?
If the lifeguard situation changes, in other words, if someone has to go back to school early or we lose lifeguards, that capacity potentially could change downward, correct?
Yes, as could the number of amenities. So occasionally when we've had to do that, we will not open the slides, for example, because we'll pull guards off to actually work the bodies of water. What we've had more questions about, quite honestly, on the reverse side of that up to this point is, can we add back activities? So can we offer a tan and float? Can we open up the pool earlier in the morning? Some of those kinds of things. And I think we are certainly open to that and we'll continue to watch that, but that is also driven by the staff availability. So if we're continuing to recruit and hire, if we can continue to hire folks, we will look at adding things back, but our goal is to kind of have that basic level of service and amenity available.
Could I ask, when patrons were turned away over the weekend, was an explanation given as to why they were over capacity or what that entailed?
And I think Director Almany can better answer, but I think what we've asked is we've put people on a waiting list, on a call list. And I know I think he indicated that some individuals waited in their cars and kind of, until that situation opened up.
Okay,
So.
good, thanks.
Solly?
Yeah, I have one question about camp staff and just what we marketed to families regarding mask use and this proposal. So I assume they'd be included in the no masks outside. And I was just wondering about communication to people who've signed up for camp.
I think our staff would still be masked. And I think what we've communicated is we would follow whatever protocols were in place. So we can certainly revisit that before we make the announcement to our camp families.
Nick?
I'm just curious on the pool, what's the safe number of people that we should be able to have out there? Like what's normal capacity without any restrictions? Let's start there maybe. 600?
Well, I mean, Penn threw out the number of 600, but that would be people packed in those bodies of water like
Sure.
sardines. So I think they determined, and Penn, you can correct me, but I believe that you determined that 200 number by sort of estimating a 6-foot radius around folks.
Okay, but we don't have a better guess at what's actually safe out there? What I'm worried about here and where I'm going with this is I feel like this is just a reaction to a next door threat. And I feel like we've been very reactive to some of these things lately. And I just want to make sure that we find a number that's safe and stick with it and have a good reason and empower the people at the community or at the pool to be able to have good word tracks on why people can't come in. But I don't want to come back, a couple weeks from now and talk about, well, we actually need to move it to 350 now because we got more people that couldn't get,
Right.
is there a limit to where it's not safe to let any more people in? And can we make sure that we all kind of agree on that before we move forward with these changes? And
Yeah,
don't know,
I
would
think
like
at
to see that.
I think at 300, you're absolutely, we're within that comfort level. And I don't think you would see I think we've seen the numbers we just introduced the camp kids into the mix this week. So we'll really watch those numbers during the day. But we can certainly put an upper, limit on that as well.
Then one other quick thing, I guess, on the mask recommendations, why are we still requiring masks at the entry lobbies and bathrooms and stuff in the community center and the pool, but not at Public Works or City Hall? What's the distinction there?
Because we don't have 100 kids all day using those restroom facilities and coming in and out of that building at Public Works or City Hall.
Okay.
Before we get too far down, I think we probably should have a motion and have our discussion.
Sure. As it relates to the COVID-19 protocols, Mayor, I move the City Council approve changes to the COVID-19 protocols and procedures presented on June 16th, 2021, and give the City Administrator, Laura Smith, the ability to make ongoing operational adjustments in accordance with public health data provided through Johnson County.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second. RC?
I would still really like to see our recommendations or requirements match for both the public and our employees. I think that with our employees, we know more about ourselves and who's vaccinated and who's not than we do with the public. And I think that we owe it to our employees to give them the option of masking or not masking. I know that we had talked about how scattered the 10 Northeast Johnson County cities were with their requirements. And I personally called all 10 of the city halls and spoke with people, and there are only 2 of us out of the 10 that require our employees or required masks, just recommendations.
Anybody else?
Mayor.
Yes, Ken?
Yes, I just want to say I support the changes that are being recommended by staff and would vote in favor of this motion.
That concludes the report, Mayor.
We haven't voted yet, hang on. So, all right, any other discussion?
Well, I guess, are you thinking about making an amendment to this? Or?
I'd like to amend to make it the public requirements and recommendations match our employees.
I'd second
I
that.
think would be consistent.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Discussion on that.
Yeah, for clarification, match in which direction?
Matching, well, I guess we could walk through each step, but for what we have for recommendations for the public, I feel are just fine for our employees.
So I think really, what you're talking about is a difference. It's the same for the public moving in and around the community center. So that's going to employees here. And I think part of the rationale for us leaving it the same was as long as we're asking some of our employees to mask, that consistency is that we keep it among all that we are asking, regardless of which facility our employees are. And quite honestly, I do think that our employees have a higher standard in dealing with the public. And so while I do think, and we know that not all of our employees are vaccinated, not all of the members of the public are vaccinated, but to a certain extent, I think it's, communicate some deference and respect in those indoor public interactions. And quite honestly, the biggest area where we've heard concerns from our employee population is in those outdoor interactions. So, we could take a poll again, but, we haven't polled our employee population on all of the decisions that we've made up to this, this point as well. So if we want to, make that kind of change in our approach, we can certainly do that.
All right, any other comments? Ken?
I just think that we need to defer to staff's recommendation. They've had discussion about this and have provided the recommendation, so I would support it the way it is.
All right, any other comments or discussion?
I've just got one more.
Yes,
I mean,
RC.
I just feel that if we go the route of amending it and making the requirements and recommendations as they stand for the public, also with our employees, it still gives our employees that option of masking up if they want to.
Any other comments, questions? Yes, Sally.
Yeah, I would second Ken in supporting staff recommendations on this. I agree with what Laura said regarding, we're offering a service to the public and we should have a little higher standard for, our employees in that respect and make sure we're setting up a situation where all members of the public are going to feel comfortable interacting with staff.
RC?
I just want to add, in addition to my research and my phone calls, I was up at the JOCO election office last week and they did not have masks or recommend them either or require them.
All right, we have a motion on the table. The motion is to accept the staff recommendation except for, I'm sorry, yes, the second motion was to accept the staff recommendation except for aligning the employee masking to the public masking. Is that? Yeah, second, the amended goes first, right?
Correct.
Yep. Yes. All right, so Audrey, please call for the vote.
Flora,
Nay.
Davis,
No,
Inman. Kring,
Aye.
Thomas,
Nay.
Rothrock,
Aye.
Boltinghouse,
Nay.
and Schlesmacher.
Aye.
Okay, 6-0. Motion carried.
Not carried.
We get 5.
Carried.
yeah, the
What is
motion
4-4?
tied.
It's 4-4, sorry. I double counted.
I vote nay.
So motion failed.
Now we're on the original motion. So please call for the vote on that.
Kring,
Nay.
Thomas,
Aye.
Schlesmacher,
Nay.
Flora,
Aye.
Boltinghouse,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Rothrock,
Nay.
Inman. Okay, 4-4.
I vote aye.
Okay, motion carried. Thank you.
And that concludes my report, Mayor.
All right, that concludes item 7. It doesn't conclude, I'm sorry. We next move to Councilmember Boltinghouse for a report on Community Development Committee, please.
Thank you, Mayor. The Community Development Committee also met on June 2nd and considered 6 items. Items approved under the consent agenda included the meeting minutes, the letter of map revision task order, the Johnson Drive design agreement, as well as interlocal agreement with Rowan Park, and the indoor pool slide restoration for the community center. There is one additional item for consideration tonight. Item 7E, Facility Conservation Improvement Program. During the May 5th Community Development Committee meeting, staff presented the improvements that are recommended as part of the Facility Conservation Improvement Program. This program is offered by the Kansas Corporation Commission as a way to achieve energy conservation through energy performance contracts. The full project would result in improved equipment performance and fewer days out of service, with an increase in comfort and control within city facilities for patrons and employees. There will also be an annual reduction of 988 metric tons of CO2 by stopping the use of harmful refrigerants. Staff is recommending proceeding with the full high approach at a total full high approach list at a total cost of $3,301,243. This will include improvements such as replacement of the chiller and pool pack at the community center, along with streetlight upgrades and weatherization at all buildings. The program is designed for improvements to work together, with items that save the most energy helping the payback in terms of those that are critical equipment replacement needs. Bundling the projects in this way and front-loading the expenses means that the city will be achieving the environmental benefits as soon as possible and allow for a manageable and consistent financing strategy to replace the failing equipment and systems. The predictability of this approach allows for time and energy to be spent on other projects and priorities. Mayor, I move the City Council approve the authorization of staff to mobilize CTS Group for the full high list of recommended energy savings programs through the Facility Conservation Improvement Program.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Mayor, I think I would have really liked to see a more phased approach and some options around that. I think it's honestly irresponsible of us looking at about $2.2 million in actual physical costs of some of these upgrades, and about 3/4 of that going into this building. I don't think the timing of that is right. I think we've seen some serious declines in revenue at this building. I think, frankly, it's not a popular opinion, I'm sure, amongst a number of people, but I think we need to look at the long-term viability of what's happening here and start to consider, where we're even going to be in not 20 years, but 5 years with this place. I don't see a lot of the rental business coming back anytime soon. It's been a ghost town the last few times I've been in here, other than when the summer camp kids are here. So I'm very concerned about investing, over $1.5 million in improvements to this facility, knowing that we're probably not even going to take in more than about $500,000 in revenue this year at the building. And that's not at all a reflection on staff here. I don't mean for that to be, an issue of mismanagement or anything like that. COVID has obviously has killed us, but I think there's a number of other factors we need to start considering too, like what's going on with Planet Fitness, what's going on with the Merriam Community Center, and some other competition that's opened up around here, and what that might mean for the longer term uses at this building. So I can't support spending that much money, especially not all up front. I would have probably been more supportive of a phased approach if there were some options on that, but we don't have that, so I'm not going to be able to support this.
Mayor, I have a comment.
Yes, Trent.
Yeah, I respectfully disagree with Councilmember Schlosmacher. We had a debate on this last week, which I know you weren't able to attend, but we had a majority that expressed the intent to go forward with this. And I actually look at this as the most responsible thing we could be doing. This provides stability. We don't have any surprises from a budgeting perspective. We know exactly what we're going to be getting ourselves into. There's a payback mechanism in place already that guarantees we're going to get a lot of these savings back down the road. Not to mention all the positive environmental aspects. So, and these are all things that we need anyway. I mean, we heard presentations last week about how pieces here in the community center are going out now as we speak that are causing unexpected problems and additional ancillary expenses that we're on the hook for. And there's also a public service component to this. You know, the more that these pieces break and deteriorate without being addressed in a responsible and fiscally sound manner, the more that we're just going to be having more recurring expenses down the road. So I'm actually really excited to support this. And I think this is easily one of the more tangible, wins that we've put on forward on the table, and a very stable vehicle to pass it with guardrails. And so I urge us all to pass this and get ourselves a win for the city.
Solly?
Yeah, I'd just like to second everything that Trent said, and then also reiterate the environmental benefits of moving forward with this program. I know that this, started originally in our Sustainability Commission with a strong priority of moving forward with an energy audit, and this program and these recommendations came from that and the great work of our Sustainability Commission and staff liaison Emily's leadership in connection with that, and I support this program.
Hillary?
I'll be voting in support of the FCIP, but I do echo some of Councilmember Schlosmacher's concerns about the use of this building. And so I want to have that bigger conversation. But why I'm voting in support is I think ultimately this building, whether it's a community center or some other asset for our city staff, I think will ultimately still be standing, and most of the elements we're improving are critical to that, no matter what the building's used for. Thanks.
I just want to clarify a little bit too. I'm not opposed to some of the energy efficiency improvements. I think it's a good thing to do. I think there's both environmental positive impacts and also some long-term cost savings. So I think that's all great. I'm just really concerned about the dollar amounts specifically at this building, and just looking at the revenue that we're bringing in and how slow it's been, and the other changes with competition around here. That's a lot of money to invest in this space, and I wish we could have seen a more phased approach at that, and maybe reevaluated things over the next couple of years as we decided how to invest a little more strategically into some of the things here. So it's not against the environmental improvements at all. I think it's great, and I know staff's done a great job, and the Sustainability Commission's done a great job with this. I just think it's too much money to take on right now in this building. So.
Ken?
Yes, I'm speaking in support of this motion. I believe that we had a long discussion about our debt service and the fact that we have the ability to take this on in terms of bond issuance and have the expense over time. So I don't believe that this is an irresponsible decision on our part at this point in time.
RC?
I am in support of this project, but I do feel the concerns that Councilmember Schlosmacher expressed. I look forward to supporting this project, though, because I believe that there's both pros and cons. So.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the table. Audrey, please call for the vote.
Flora,
Aye.
Boltinghouse,
Aye.
Thomas,
Aye.
Rothrock, Inman. Kring.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Schlesmacher.
Nay.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Does that conclude your report?
Yes, sir.
All right,
Concludes
thank
my
you.
report.
All right, moving on to item 8, which would be unfinished business. We do not have any, so moving on to item 9, new business. And we do have one item under new business, which is the approval of a fireworks permit from Walden Company for the Mission Summer Family Picnic. Laura Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. We've been hard at work negotiating with the folks who manage the 5700 Broadmoor building, who have graciously once again allowed us or given us permission to have our fireworks display on their parking lot. And so in the past, when we have not used a professional display company to set off the fireworks, the council has had to waive our ordinance to allow for that to occur. Under the ordinances, when we are using a professional firm like Walden Company, they have to submit a permit application, and that permit has to be approved by the governing body. So that permit, once we secured that permission from the building owners, we pulled together the information. Our Walden Company submitted their permit, and that's what's before you this evening to allow us to have our fireworks show in connection with the Summer Family Picnic on July 10th.
Mayor, I move that the city council approve the fireworks permit for Walt and Company for the fireworks display to be held in connection with the Mission Summer Family Picnic on Saturday, July 10th, 2021 at Broadmoor Park.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I would just
Nick.
say, well, some of my favorite memories with the city have been blowing stuff up in the parking lot out there and almost blowing my hand off in the process. It's probably a good idea that we're letting someone else handle it. So I'll be supporting this one.
Anybody else? Seeing none, Audrey, please call for the vote.
Inman. Flora.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Thomas.
Aye.
Kring.
Aye.
Boltinghouse.
Aye.
Rothrock. Schlesmacher.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
All right, that concludes item 9. Moving on to item 10, which are comments from the city council. This is an opportunity for comments from our council members. Does anybody have anything they want to share? Sally.
Yes, I just wanted to give a shout out to Public Works. I've been getting really positive feedback from others in Millhaven about the patching work that's been going on this week. And I know crews were even out there today in the really, really hot weather. So just wanted to thank Celia and Brent for their hard work on that, and the crews as well.
Debbie?
Second echo for Public Works. Celia and Brent have both been instrumental in coming out to houses where we had some storm damage and trying to discern through the Ames mapping who owns what property and trying to convey that professionally to someone who's disturbed that their car is now totaled as a result of a cottonwood branch falling on top of it. I honestly appreciate your responsiveness, your professionalism, and the way you communicate with the public. I think it's excellent. So thank you.
RC, then Ken.
Third echo for that shout out to Public Works. I still have a flag for you. And last week I had picked up a flag and was going to call somebody, and Public Works was already out and snagged it from me. So I appreciate that. The Mission Family Community Food Pantry is also having another drive at on the 24th at Trinity Lutheran, and then July 8th and July 22nd. So see you there.
Ken?
Just wanted to comment that I received our Wayfinder survey. So I made sure that it was completed and filled out by my wife so that I wasn't the one biasing the findings. I also want to say a shout out to Public Works as well. And I'd also like to recognize Juneteenth, which is coming up, and in recognition of that new federal holiday that's been established. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, seeing none, we'll move on. To item 11, mayor's report. I do not have one, so we'll go to the city administrator's report. Ms. Smith.
So I apologize, but that's what happened.
Time's up.
I sort of feel like now that the pool's open, the best analogy is, you know how when you were young and you were goofing around at the pool and your friends plunged you under the water and then you came up and gasped for air and went off and swam again. That's kind of where we are with everything that we have going on. So a lot going on, a lot of exciting stuff. A couple of things we forgot to mention at the beginning of the meeting, but we are also streaming these council meetings on Facebook. And while we are not monitoring and responding to comments directly on Facebook while the event is live, we will follow up and respond to any comments that we receive. Although this evening we did have one that asked about closed captioning, so that was turned on and we've got that taken care of. So we'll make sure to build that into kind of our introduction on the front end. Reached out to Catholic Charities this week. We've had the rent and mortgage assistance program out there for about a month. We had some analytics from Crux. We've had great looks at the website and people coming in from a variety of different sources, including some of the news media outlets that picked it up. As of today, we have not had anyone who has actually contacted Catholic Charities to request rent or mortgage assistance. So we will be doing another push in this coming month and specifically targeting property managers at our multifamily properties to see if we can't get some interest in that program. As we've talked about, the summer camp program kicked off this week, and it's great to just kind of see that life in and around this building and the pool and around the city as well. It's a lot of fun. Mission Summer Family Picnic will be at Broadmoor Park on Saturday, July 10th. We will have a beer garden, or actually alcohol is available based on the approvals that the council gave earlier this evening. We'll have music, food, certainly looking at continuing some of our COVID protocols, but look forward to being able to celebrate as a community again at that event. Speaking of great community events, the market is off to a great start for the last couple of weeks. So encourage everyone to continue coming down. It'll be hot tomorrow evening, but please come down and enjoy that. Also, you'll notice, and I've got some information that I can share, but Crux has been working with Parks and Recreation staff on new rental collateral material that really, I think, does a fantastic job of promoting the facility. It's a tool we've not ever had to use in our marketing efforts before. So we've got some of that rental collateral if you're interested in taking a look. Also, I'll be sending out the Sunflower Development Group submitted their final development plan for the Mission Bowl project. And they will be presenting that to the Planning Commission at the June 28th meeting. So we are on schedule. I know last month we extended the timeline for the redevelopment agreement and that they are meeting those milestones that we talked about. So I have that final development plan submission that I will email out to you all tomorrow so you can have the opportunity to take a look at that. Final development plan does not come back to you for any action. So if you have, once you get that and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Brian. I'll turn it over to Celia for just a moment. We had a sinkhole that developed today at 55th and Woodson, and I'll let her share some information about that and our plans to get emergency repairs started on that. And then I've got a couple of other items about our meeting next week, and then that'll be the end of my report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Police contacted us this afternoon about a potential sinkhole at 55th and Woodson. So Brent went out and took a look at it, and it's a 15-inch CMP pipe that is located, it's crossing 55th Street. Right now, it's about the size of a manhole, but we've got it coned off, and it's undermined about 4 feet, so we're a little worried about it. So we're keeping an eye on it. We've contacted Kissick, who did the emergency Rock Creek repair, and they can get out here Friday as soon as we call in utilities. So we're going to monitor it. If we have to shut down the road, we will, but hopefully they can get out there and get it fixed. They gave us a time and materials not to exceed cost of about $32,000. Hopefully it won't be that much, but just wanted to let you know what's going on. We also have a sinkhole behind, I guess it's the former Neff lot behind Unleashed. We've got that coned off and we're working on that one as well, but that one's not in the road, so it's not as much of an emergency, but we do need to get it taken care of before it gets wider and it costs more money. So if you have any questions, let me know about the sinkhole, but we'll be working on it and appreciate Laura's support of getting us moving so we can get it taken care of. With the rain, we had that rain, I think it was for 11 days in a row. And as Debbie said, we've got trees coming down and starting to see some sinkholes. So rain's never good. This time, it's good for the grass, but it's not good for sinkholes and things like that. So.
And the pipe at 55th and Woodson was condition 5.
Yes.
So we knew that was already in failing condition.
Yeah, so it's really helpful to have that report and that condition inventory. We can go straight there and look at it, and we don't have to pipe it and camera it and not waste time, but take time doing that when we already know that. So thanks for pointing that out. Thank you.
I have a question for you. I report a lot of dead trees because this causes a lot of problems around here with the electricity. How long does that take? And if it's in somebody's backyard, can you do anything about it?
I know that community development deals with trees and it's kind of confusing on really exactly what the rules are, but if there's a dead tree or a potential falling, Public Works goes out. If it's in the right of way or if it's on our property, we'll hire somebody to assess it and cut it down. If it's on somebody else's property, if it's a dead tree, I believe that building codes can contact the owner and they're required to take it down. But if it's a tree that just a limb is falling down, I believe Jim Brown, our building official, has prepared a brochure that talks about it. But I believe that you have to work through the insurance company and it may be a civil matter and it's more difficult to deal with it. We really can't have people, go cut your tree because it may fall down. Unfortunately, we don't have those ordinances. I don't know if any city does. So it's kind of one of those hard things that we're working on. I don't know, Brian, is there anything you want to add to that?
I know that we had KCP&L in here a couple of years ago talking a little bit about that
Yeah,
as well.
they'll come in and trim along power lines. There's a potential that a tree could fall on a power line. But just for a dead tree in someone's backyard, it's typically a nuisance matter. We'll notify the homeowner they need to bring that down. And if they're not able to do it, because it can be expensive, we do have some funds available to help them with the cost.
Right, I know it's
So,
super expensive.
yeah.
We had a situation where I ended up in my backyard for 2 hours because I couldn't get in my house.
Yeah.
The other thing that
With the storms we had, especially this Sunday, that's what brought down a lot of the trees.
I
Yeah.
thought this is a great way to start out my day after my walk. So.
Yeah. The other thing that reminded me of is that sometimes residents will call in because they'll see a branch that's about to fall on a KCP&L power line, but the KCP&L won't do anything unless it's resting on the line. And if it's on the cable below the line, they don't do it. So sometimes it's confusing for people to see how close it is, but KCP&L isn't handling those kind of situations. So.
All right, great. Thank you.
Debbie?
Thank you.
Celia, do you know, you sent me that tree brochure and that was really helpful. It's really helpful for residents. Do we know if we have that out on the website? Because that's really a great document about whose responsibility is who for if the branch falls versus where the trunk of the tree lies and whose property. That was really
And I have to give Jim Brown credit for that. If we don't have it on the website, and I'm assuming we do, then we'll make sure we get it on.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, just a couple of quick things about next week's meeting. We will have a work session scheduled. I know the council expressed an interest in kind of talking about an approach to funding park improvements and whether we wanted to look at that on taking a more phased approach or looking at bigger impacts in a particular park all at once. So that will be one piece of that. The second piece of that, we did receive our information from Johnson County relative to revenue neutral mill levies in connection with Senate Bill 13. So we'll take a few minutes next week to talk about those impacts and whether or not we want to exceed that revenue neutral rate in our 2022 budget and then kind of the timeline for that and notification. And then also with the approval of the FCIP improvements, particularly the streetlight improvements, in order for us to bond finance streetlights, we need to pass a charter ordinance to do that. And I'm going to invite Kevin Wempe to come up in just a few minutes to kind of share with you why that is from a statutory standpoint. But we would propose that we call a special meeting in advance of our work session to consider that charter ordinance. As you know, a charter ordinance requires publication on 2 different occasions and then a 60-day protest period in order for it to become effective. So there'll be plenty of opportunities for us to communicate with the public and what the intent of that is. But if we don't get it started next week, then we will delay the potential receipt of bond proceeds until almost the end of the year. So we'd like to go ahead and get that process started. So with that, I would invite Kevin to come up and just kind of share with you why the charter ordinance is required and what you may see in front of you this evening. And I know Audrey had prepared a special meeting notice, which several of you have signed. So we'll plan to do that at 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock ahead of our 6:30 work session next Wednesday. So Kevin, oh, here you are.
Hi, good evening. I'm Kevin Wempe with Gilmore and Bell, the city's bond counsel. I'll be quite brief about the charter ordinance, and the good news is it might be relatively familiar. As close to 8 or 9 years ago, we did the same thing for a separate streetlight financing, so it's sort of a refresh of that approach from 2012 or 13, I recall. But as Laura mentioned, bond financing is dictated largely by statute, and there are separate statutes for financing streets or public buildings or what have you to authorize the issuance of debt for those projects. Unfortunately, in our opinion, there's no separate statutory authority for financing a standalone streetlight project. So again, similar to the 2012 or 2013 project I mentioned, we'd ask that the city council use the city's home rule powers to supplement the statutes, install a charter ordinance that will grant the ability to finance the streetlight project using debt. So happy to go into more detail or answer any questions you might have about that approach. Sure. Yeah, certainly. So park improvements, again, going back to the statutes, they're lodged in separate areas, and park improvements is one where certain types of park improvements, and the majority of them under the statutes as written, require a public vote to issue bonds for those improvements. And so the charter ordinance slated for the streetlight improvements could also be used as a flexible tool for capital financing, which could include capital improvements to your parks as well.
Any questions? All right, thank you. All right, thank you. That concludes item 12. We'll move on to item 13. We do have a need for an executive session this evening, which will be a consultation on privileged communication. The governing body and those individuals named in the motion will adjourn to executive session for the allotted time. When that time is expired, the governing body will reconvene to do one of the following. One, either extend the time required for discussion and return to executive session, or come back and continue with our regular legislative meeting. As a reminder to the public, the governing body may take no binding action in an executive session. So I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move the city council recess to executive session under KSA 75-4319B2, consultation with attorneys on matters deemed privileged. Also attending the meeting will be City Administrator Laura Smith, City Attorney Dave Martin, and City Attorney Pete Heaven. The open meeting will resume at 8:50 p.m.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 We are in executive session. We're going next door. All right, let the record reflect, it's 8:50, and we are back in session. Before we adjourn tonight, I want to share with the public that the video from this meeting will be available through a link on our website, missionks.org. There being no further business tonight, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Second? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. We are adjourned.